Hello, listeners. Welcome to Audio Fiction FM, a new YouTube series and podcast dedicated to all things audio fiction. My name is Marisa Ewing-Moody. I'm the founder of the audio post-production studio Hemlock Creek Productions, an audio editor for podcasts, video games, and film, and now I'm also your host. I've been working in the world of audio fiction for about a decade, both as an editor and as a creator of the horror audio drama Liars and Leeches. While I absolutely adore audio fiction, I feel like it has a bit of a discoverability problem, where many people are familiar with the idea of older radio shows, but not so much with modern audio dramas, actual plays, or other recent types of audio fiction. I hope that through Audio Fiction FM, I can introduce you to new audio fiction shows and the creators behind them, plus give you a space to build community with fellow audio fiction listeners. In each episode of Audio Fiction FM, I'll present some news headlines from across the audio fiction world, play an episode of a featured show, and then follow that with an interview with the show's creators. Episodes will premiere on YouTube on the second Wednesday every month at 8 p.m. Central Time, where you can chat live with fans and creators alike. If you miss a premiere, you can always watch on demand later on YouTube or listen to an audio-only version wherever you get your podcasts. Before we get started with the episode and meet this month's guest, I want to take a moment to let you know that we have some bonus goodies on our Patreon, which help support this show. On our page, you can listen to extended and ad-free episodes of Audio Fiction FM, receive early news about our shows, and read our blog posts full of tips, tricks, and resources for audio fiction creators. The link to our Patreon is available in the show notes. So, with that out of the way, let's get started on our first episode by diving into this week's audio fiction headlines. The EU has passed a new law on artificial intelligence that applies to any content consumed in the EU, including podcasts and audio fiction. This law requires that creators clearly disclose if AI is used to generate or manipulate audio or video. This law only applies to new content posted after the law took effect on August 3rd of this year, so it will not affect your content retroactively. The law also does not apply to the use of AI editing tools like denoising software, but will apply to cases where AI is creating audio, such as AI-generated voices. Even if you don't live in the EU, but you distribute content there, this new law will apply to you. Make sure to label your content carefully, as violating the law can result in hefty fines. Because of this new law, audio fiction listeners in the EU will now be able to confidently identify shows that use generative AI. Spotify is currently testing a new feature called Skip Ahead that allows premium users to skip segments of podcasts that Spotify believes listeners may want to skip. Not only can these segments include ad breaks, but they can also include segments like intros, outros, or calls to actions creators might share, including notices about crowdfunding campaigns or future seasons. At this time, there isn't much information available on where this tool is being tested, only that it is being used in, quote, select markets. It is also not currently possible to opt out of this feature appearing on your shows. Creators may want to keep this in mind when creating calls to action and when considering how to advertise their shows on Spotify. The International Women's Podcast Awards has extended their submission deadline to August 14th. Proudly queer and trans-inclusive, the IWPAs showcase creative excellence across multiple categories, recognizing the best in the business from across the world, from those who are self-taught and producing shows solo, to those who form part of larger teams at established audio companies. If you are a female creator in the podcast space, whether your show is fiction or nonfiction, you have a couple more days to submit your show for consideration. This year's IWPA Awards ceremony will be held in Toronto. For audio fiction creators based in Vermont, the Vermont Arts Council is currently accepting application to their artist development grants. Applicants can apply for up to $2,000 to help grow your work, including purchasing new equipment, attending conferences or other learning opportunities, and hiring professionals to improve areas of your work, such as marketing or improving your website. Applications remain open until September 7th. If you have any news or stories you'd like to share with us for next month, feel free to reach out through the link in our description and let us know. Today, for our first ever guest, we have an absolute treat for you. Podcast creator and voice actor Lauren Shippen of Atypical Artists will be joining us. Lauren is a writer best known for her work in fiction podcasts. She was the creator of the popular audio drama The Bright Sessions, which ran from 2015 to 2021. She went on to write and direct the #1 podcast Bridgewater and Passenger List, for which she received an iHeart Podcast Award and BBC Audio Drama Award, Webby, and 2 British Podcast Awards respectively. She also wrote Marvels, an audio adaptation of the popular comic, and Surviving Hawkins, a Stranger Things podcast. Her current originals are Maxine Miles, a choose-your-own-path mystery for young adults, New Year's Day, a yearly drama, and Breaker Whiskey, an ongoing daily podcast about shouting into the void at the end of the world. She has written 3 novels with Tortine. Lauren was named one of Forbes' 2018 30 Under 30 in Media and one of Movie Maker Magazine and Austin Film Festival's 25 screenwriters to watch. Lauren is going to be sharing one of her most recent projects with us today, the supernatural drama 2000 and Late. In a small town in upstate New York, Harper lives a completely mundane existence. After years trying to get an artistic career off the ground, she's retreated to her tiny hometown, working minimum wage jobs and trying to ignore her chronic pain. All her days are exactly the same. Wake up, have a cup of instant coffee, go to work, go home, have a microwave meal, watch TV, go to sleep. With the exception of her girlfriend, the one bright spot in Harper's life, existence is tedious and never-ending. And then, on her 36th birthday, a demon possesses Harper, so not so mundane after all. 2000 and Late is the story of a demon from hell sent to bring along the apocalypse. Only, when they arrive, they find that the end of the world isn't as straightforward as they thought. But that doesn't mean they can't sow a little chaos. The human they were assigned to is incredibly ordinary, but has more rock bottom to find. I'm really excited to share this show with you and to hear more from Lauren about her history in audio fiction and her creative process behind this show. We're going to take a short break and then be back with the first episode of 2000 and Late. If you're listening to this show, chances are you have an interest in audio drama. There's never been a better time to be an audio drama fan. By some estimates, there are over 60,000 fiction podcasts available to listen to right now, with hundreds more added each month. But with that many shows to choose from, it can be a bit overwhelming to decide what to listen to first. So, besides Audio Fiction FM, where else can you go to find fiction podcasts? May we suggest theend.fyi. The End is the only listener-focused directory for binge-ready fiction podcasts, audio dramas, and other audio fiction. Each of the thousands of shows in the End's directory have reached a season finale or the series conclusion, so you can binge listen with confidence. With dozens of new shows added every week, The End is becoming the comprehensive directory for binge-ready audio fiction shows. The End also sends out a weekly update via email for shows newly added or updated in their directory in the last week, a look ahead at what shows are returning with new seasons next week, along with some fan favorites and featured collections. So if you need a never-ending supply of audio fiction in your life, visit theend.fyi and start binge listening to great audio fiction. That's theend.fyi. How to Make Audio Drama, A Guide to Fiction Podcasting by Tal Minear explores the process from start to finish. Instead of diving into the best software and hardware to make your podcast, it talks about how to know if your idea works in an audio medium, how to run a casting call, what buffer you should build into a schedule, and more, with examples to learn from and templates to use yourself. Find out more at bit.ly/audiodramabook.
This show contains all kinds of bad things. It's set in our modern day, which means it involves discussion of inept government, unfair business practices, labor abuse, small-mindedness, substance abuse, grief and loss, COVID, chronic illness, sexual harassment, and death. There's also quite a bit of swearing, drinking, smoking, violence, arson, and all manner of demonic behavior. This episode in particular involves a car crash, so perhaps best not to listen while operating a motor vehicle. Enjoy, but enjoy responsibly.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. In a lot of ways, it's a classic story. Hero's journey kind of shit. You're living your life, minding your own business, when suddenly the universe throws something at you. Something unexpected, something big. Something that someone who's actually qualified to do stuff should probably be addressing, but suddenly it's your problem. It doesn't matter if you refuse or if you feel like you're the wrong person because, well, you're it. Nothing you can do. One moment you're an upstanding, responsible citizen and...
You can't possibly be describing yourself.
Are you kidding me right now?
Upstanding? I mean, really, Harper.
Oh my God, can you please just shut up?
I'm sorry, who are you talking to?
What?
Were you telling me to shut up?
You really have all the grace of a sentient steak, don't you?
What? No. Wait, you couldn't hear that?
Hear what? You suddenly stopped talking and then you were yelling at me.
So now you use your inside voice.
Excuse me?
Look, let me just go back to the beginning here.
Beginning of what?
The beginning of the end of the world.
Oh my god, you're dramatic. You're listening to 2000 and Late. This is how to procrastinate the end of the world.
My 36th birthday was 3 weeks ago, and that's really where things started, which is funny because you don't think of anything as starting when you're 36, am I right?
I don't know. I'm 25.
Of course you
Ouch.
are. Okay, then you're probably still really celebrating your birthdays. Me, not so much. At least, not like I used to. No more shots or crazy late nights or ill-advised hookups. Birthdays post-30 are a little more dignified. Come on.
He can't make the grab. Newton round second. The wave home. The throw comes into short. Throw cut off the plate. Not time.
God damn it!
Matt Carter brings McDougal home. Town Pipers aren't going to be happy about that.
Jesus fucking Christ, this is pitiful, even for the fucking Pipers. Hey, gorgeous.
Happy birthday!
Thanks, Gemma.
Did you get the flowers?
I did! You really didn't have to do that.
And you really didn't have to make me a hype-up playlist on your birthday.
Oh, come on. If I can't be there to enter every room before you and say, here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Gemma Reyes, the smartest, most beautiful.
Oh my god, shut up.
You can't make me.
I wish I was there to smack a hand over your mouth.
Ooh, kinky.
Seriously, I'm really sorry, Harps.
No apologizing. Remember, you don't get to choose when you prostrate yourself in front of the money altar.
Still, I would so much rather be upstate with you than in the city having to wear black tie in 90-degree weather.
Oof. How's it going? Suckered any billionaires yet?
We're getting there. But seriously, it's so hot. I'm dying here. I need a weekend away. Bad.
Well, you know I'm not going anywhere. The house and its AC are here whenever you want. In theory.
Still haven't gotten the unit fixed, huh?
It's working fine. It's working. It'll be fixed by the time you're here, I swear.
I'm sorry I can't come this month.
Seriously, babe, it's okay.
But I promise, next time I'm up, I'm going to introduce you to that editor I know in Cold Spring.
Gemma.
It doesn't hurt to talk to them.
And next time you're up, we are finally starting Battlestar Galactica. The fact that Starbuck wasn't your queer awakening is shocking to me.
Are you having a good birthday, at least?
Oh yeah, it's great. You know, just finishing up my lobster dinner and reading Proust.
By which you mean drinking PBR while watching minor league baseball in your underwear?
I'm wearing pants.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry, Harper. I've got to go. The speeches are starting soon.
Go. Send the hype up playlist to the sound system and let the bass blast some money out of those old dudes.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Sure. Go kick some gala ass, take some yacht money from those fat cats.
Will do. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. So there I am, enjoying a lovely, quiet night alone, missing my stunning, perfect girlfriend, and I'm just about to turn in at a very respectable time.
2:12 in the morning.
When suddenly, this thing happens. What the fuck? The specifics aren't really important.
Wow, 5 minutes to recount a conversation with Gemma about her job that, by definition, results in no profit, but you're going to gloss over my glorious arrival. Shut up.
But, long story short...
Not once in your whole life have you shortened a story of any length.
Something happened that, sort of altered my perception of the world and, also my entire being.
Okay.
You don't want to know what it is?
My God, you humans are so incredibly uncurious about everything.
I really just wanted to know,
A demon, from hell, came up and possessed me. Not exorcist possessed. I'm not going to start projectile vomiting or anything, don't worry. More like I just sort of share my body with them as they attempt to perform, nefarious deeds here on Earth, blah, 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 blah. But this is totally against my will. I didn't summon them or anything. I'm an atheist.
Hell knows why.
This is just a small wrinkle to that. Honestly, they actually explained it a lot better.
Finally, some appreciation.
Once I, stopped screaming. What the fuck is happening? What the fuck? Where the fuck
Landry.
How the fuck do you know my middle name?
You were chosen by the great and terrible powers of hell to become an agent of the end of days.
The... what?
As you enter adulthood, I will mold you into a powerful human.
Enter adulthood? What is happening?
As today is your 16th birthday.
What? No, it isn't.
You will become... What? Yes, it is.
It's my birthday, but I haven't been 16 for 20 years.
You are lying.
I am really not. I just turned 36. So, as it turns out, this is like a thing for hell. They send these passengers to humans when the humans are still impressionable and corruptible, and then the demons manipulate things so that those people gain enough power to do real damage, which honestly explains a lot about the world.
Don't put it all on us. You've made plenty of progress on your own.
But, well, I guess they match personalities when they do these pairings, because my guy was late. 20 years late.
I have explained time and time again that time works differently in hell, and
Not that I'm using that as an excuse for my tardiness today. It's a character flaw. I know that. I'd say I'm working on it, but in the interest of full disclosure, I have bigger fish to fry.
Because you have a demon possessing you.
A demon blessing you with its presence. Not to appropriate angel culture, of course.
Look, I know how it sounds. And I was totally not on board at first either. I figured I just had too much to drink, or I'd slipped in the shower and was in some weird coma dream, but then I woke up the next morning and Havoc was still there.
Havoc?
Oh yeah, that's the thing's name. Fitting, right? Turns out truth in advertising is their one redeeming quality. This isn't happening. Everything's totally fine and normal.
You can tell yourself that until you're blue in the face, but it won't change the conditions on the ground.
Harper, are you doing okay, kid? Saints alive, someone's jumpy.
Carol, hey. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
I cannot believe this is who I'm stuck with.
Hungover?
Yeah, I wish.
The only reason you're not is because of me. The least you could do is say thank you.
That chance.
What?
See? You can't really ignore me.
Sure I can.
Even if you did manage to refrain from responding to me, you can't actually shut me up.
Harper!
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, now I'm thinking you finally took Jared up on his shady mushrooms.
Oh, shit, is he still growing those? Could he have put them in something? Did we have any snacks in the break room yesterday?
Wow, I was kidding. Oh my gosh, seriously, are you okay?
It's going to sound crazy. You know it's going to sound crazy. I'm hearing it in your head, the way this conversation will play out, and it'll end with you going to church with Carol for the next 3 months.
How did you get all that but not know what a cell phone was?
It's not an exact science.
Who are you talking to? Did you get some of those fancy ear pod thingies?
Shit, Carol, I'm sorry, I'm just...
Crazy.
I did not get enough sleep last night, and the fluorescent lights in here are like... Ugh.
Ugh, I know. I can see my pores. I think Rory finally replaced some of the busted bulbs. It's too goddamn bright. People are going to be able to see that all the fruit is bruised to shit.
Yeah, well, not like they have anywhere else to shop.
Ain't that the truth? All right, kid, why don't you go get yourself a cup of coffee? I'll finish stocking.
No, you don't have to do that.
Come on. You did all my work for 3 weeks after I threw out my back. I owe ya.
You mean it? Oh, you're the best, Carol.
And don't you forget it, little lady.
You know, working at a grocery is not exactly what I had in mind when I came up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is my life not exciting enough for the spawn of hell?
I just don't see how we're going to be elected mayor of New York City at this rate.
What?
That's the plan. Do keep up.
No, that's not the plan. That's not any plan. I'm lucky to have this job, let alone... Why am I even talking to you?
Because you are absolutely wretched at keeping your word. This is what makes humans so easy to manipulate. You have no conviction.
I'll show you conviction. Yeah, I'll pour this entire pot of coffee on my head. That'll snap me out of it.
You see my point? You couldn't even finish the jigsaw puzzle Gemma left at your home 6 months ago.
What? How do you know that?
Yet with the program, I'm in your head. It's a goddamn mess, so information is coming fast and random. If I'm honest, I do like a little chaos, but egads.
So you can just read all my thoughts, is that it?
No, weren't you paying attention when we went over this last night?
You mean when you showed me all those visions of death and destruction and then moved all the furniture in my house with your mind?
With your mind. Well, our mind, really.
No, we're not doing that.
I told you my presence here imbues you with the powers that have been bestowed upon me by the fires of hell.
This is it. This is the one. I've really finally fully lost my fucking mind.
This isn't ideal for me either. You were supposed to still be clay, not all dried out.
Oh, fuck you.
Now focus up. We need to get out of here and get to work.
I am at work. Work I need to do to, eat, so I'm gonna go back to ignoring you now. I actually got through that first shift pretty okay. I mean, I think I was still in the, denial phase. Because Havoc doesn't shut up. Ever. They're just constantly talking. A running commentary on everything I say and do.
If you did or said anything right, I wouldn't have to comment.
See?
No.
Right, sorry. It's suddenly decided to be shy. Despite the fact that it has no problem talking to other people when it wants to, or using their crazy powers of telekinesis or whatever to completely fuck up my life.
I think maybe we should.
And I know I'm supposed to be telling you about me and my experience, but the thing about Havoc is, well, I understand the need for personal responsibility. I do, but some things are not my fault.
You're eating that disgusting packaged noodle abomination again. You're going to get scurvy, which you really cannot afford to do, given you don't have health insurance. A tip of the cap to the inventor of that glorious system, by the way.
What, healthcare? That wasn't one of your bunch?
Too intricate. Digging into the finer details of bureaucracy is not a strength of ours.
What is?
Getting the ball rolling. The big ideas, autocracy, fiat currency, war, just all the fun stuff, as you well know.
What's that supposed to mean?
I mean that we have the same idea of fun. You would love nothing more than to burn this house down to the studs, quit your job, and stop giving a hoot about anything. Other than that irritating girlfriend of yours, you've basically got the last one done and dusted already.
It was wrong, of course. I had no plans to leave that job, and I don't want to destroy anything. And yet... What did you do?
Got the ball rolling.
And as if having my living room incinerated wasn't bad enough... What the fuck?
He cut us off.
I am so sorry.
Well, I'm not. Throw it in reverse so you can hit him again.
And the crazy thing is, it doesn't even seem all that pressed about its job. It showed up 20 years late and so far has just talked a big game about the apocalypse while not doing anything more than fucking up my life at every turn.
I am simply getting a lay of the land before I...
And so you can imagine the kind of stress I've been under. I was mostly able to keep things in control at work, but the only thing it does seem to want are novelty drinks.
Oh, that one. Harper, come on. The pina colada flavor just...
Fuck! Jesus, don't do that.
You're ignoring me.
What gave it away? Was it my not talking to you?
You agreed to stop ignoring me.
And you agreed to shut up while I'm at work.
But we haven't tried the pina colada flavor yet.
That doesn't mean you can commandeer my body to try and grab the bottle out of the fridge.
So get it for me.
I'm not buying it for you.
Don't pay for it.
Of all the things that Jack from work, I'm not stealing pina colada liquid sugar. Now, be quiet.
But I want it.
And I want $1 million in a new car, but you don't see me complaining.
You complain constantly. I'm in your head. I hear it.
Only because a demon refuses to leave my body. Fuck!
Landry, what's going on?
Ugh, this idiot.
Just broke a bottle.
Is someone drinking on the job again?
Of course not.
Only little sip.
That's coming out of your paycheck.
You should have just taken it.
Wait, Rory, that's not fair.
Life isn't fair.
I fumbled one bottle. Corporate accounts for way more loss than that in any given day.
And retail theft is up, so we're already in the red.
That's not true.
You think you know better than the news and several renowned podcasters.
Yeah, because I have a basic understanding of statistics and how fear-mongering works.
Propaganda. I love that stuff.
Are you sassing me?
Sassing.
You know, your attitude lately has really left a lot to be desired.
Sorry.
And now you're destroying merchandise.
I dropped one bottle.
And I know you've had your own personal problems the last few years.
Personal problems.
But that's no excuse. You should be able to handle putting a bottle into a fridge without breaking it.
See all the bottles not broken in the fridge? I can handle it. But shit happens.
Okay, stuff happens is not going to get you far in life, Landry. You know, you could really stand to take a page out of Jared's book.
Jared is your cousin and sells you weed. Of course you like Jared, but he's 19 and a fucking idiot.
I think we should kill Jared.
I don't like your tone.
I think we should kill them.
Good tone isn't required for stocking groceries.
But it is required to work for me.
I don't work for you. I work for a mega corporation trying to pass itself off as a neighborhood grocer.
Mega corporations.
You know, Harper, you're really pushing it.
And you're really being a grade A dick.
Yes, that's right. Tell them what for.
How dare you speak to me that way?
You're riding my ass for no reason.
I have every reason. You've been late and unpleasant for weeks. Actually, You've always been late.
I'm working on the late thing, but I'm so sorry for not having the perfect sunshine demeanor when the world is ending.
Cheers me right up.
The world is...
You know, I didn't buy it at first that this stupid fucking demon was a part of some grand plan to bring about the destruction of humanity, but I swear to God, everyone and their mother has been acting like the biggest douchebag for years.
My mother? She is a God-fearing woman, I'll have you know.
Not even in an interesting way. Half it could tell me that you're possessed, that shitty middle managers are all part of Satan's grand apocalypse plan, and I'd believe it.
You are clearly inebriated.
And I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of pretending like what I do is high stakes, or that I need to smile, or that I need to stand all day so the customers don't think I'm lazy, because I don't. I don't need to do any of that. I stock shelves and I check people out and then I go home, and it's a service that needs to be provided and what I'm happy to do, but it doesn't fucking matter if we're a family or if I take pride in my work, because anyone with the tiniest bit of power, including you, a local grocery store manager, led to turn them into the most insufferable person on the planet.
That's it. I'm writing you up.
All right, that's it. Let's kill them.
Oh no, not a write-up. How will I possibly go on? Don't you get it, Rory? It doesn't fucking matter. You don't fucking matter.
You need to calm down, Missy.
Why? Why should I calm down? My house is torched, the backseat of my car is full of broken glass because the demon inside of me has no impulse control, and I can't afford to fix any of that. But I drop one bottle so I get $3 taken out of my $40 paycheck? How is that reasonable?
All right, that's it. You need to clock out for the day. You're being hysterical.
I'm not hysterical.
Okay, so maybe I was being a little hysterical. But are we not allowed a bad day here and then? I think I had good reason, and look, I'm not going to try and claim it was a proud moment.
Well, I'm proud of it.
But I do take responsibility. Does that answer your question?
I just asked you the reason for your termination from your previous job.
Right. Good. So there you go. A little accidental destruction of company property, courtesy of unintended demonic possession, not anything to do with my work ethic. And a grocery store has a lot of different moving parts, so I think working in food service would be an even better fit.
Oh, you think that, do you?
No.
Absolutely. I really think I'd be a great addition to this Wendy's.
Ma'am, this is a Denny's.
Huh. So it is. Wendy's is this afternoon. But maybe I won't need to go to that interview after all?
Do you really think you're getting this job?
No, I do not. God damn it!
It's like I've been saying, all these interviews are a waste.
Yeah, well, unless one of your powers is printing money, I need a job.
I told you.
We're not robbing a bank. That's not happening.
It'd be more effective than telling every interviewer that you're possessed.
Well, when I tried the other way, when I tried just being a fucking normal human being, you got bored and set my resume on fire.
An improvement to it, let's be
And
honest.
I just didn't need another interview to turn into a potential misdemeanor. But if I talk about you, you behave, mostly. Narcissism, it turns out, is your weakness.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Don't. Better to be a little quirky than burn down a building, right?
I think you passed a little quirky several exits ago.
And whose fault is that? Oh, right, the same person whose fault it is that I have nowhere to live.
Not a person. And when are you going to get over that? I was keeping the fire contained. You still have a house?
That I can't live in until it's cleared by the fire chief.
Well, I had to do something.
Why?
Because you were never going to do anything yourself. You would have continued on with your miserable, unremarkable existence if it weren't for me.
Oh, and I'm thriving now, jobless, sleeping on Carol's couch?
You're awake.
Fuck you.
Yes, good. Get angry.
I'm angry at you.
No, you're angry at the whole world, Harper, so let yourself be.
What good is that going to do? Getting angry won't pay my bills.
But it'll feel good, won't it? And when's the last time you did anything that actually felt good?
I'm a grown-up. I can't just do whatever feels good.
Why not? Everybody else does.
Yeah, and look where it got us.
So what? Just because other people sullied the world means you can't do what you want?
That's exactly what that means.
No, you're just scared. Scared of all that anger inside of you, that sweet, hot rage.
You're a demon. That's your influence.
No, it's why you were chosen.
What?
It's not random, Harper. What, do you think hell is sending their best and brightest into whatever humans pop up just hoping for a win?
Well, I don't think hell is sending their best and brightest, period, so...
You've always had that rage inside you. It burns so brightly, even viewing it from below. A kind of burn we don't often see in humans of your advanced age.
Fuck you.
And that anger, that fire is what makes a great leader. You would have made a great leader.
Mayor of New York, right?
Oh, you would have accumulated so much power by now.
Again, your fault, by your own admission.
No, don't blame me. I would have helped, but you could have done it on your own. That's the whole point. We're just here to nudge.
You've already nudged me into unemployment and houselessness. Robbing a bank would nudge me right into prison.
No prison could hold us.
Seriously, just leave me alone for a bit and let me wallow in another failure.
Harper?
I'll buy you whatever you want at Wendy's, even if I don't get the job, which, let's be honest, I won't.
Harper, incoming.
What? Oh, shit.
Hey, sweetheart. Do you know where to get some grub around here? Come on, I'm just passing through.
There's a Denny's back a few blocks.
Yeah? What are you doing right now? Want to grab a bite?
Hit him.
No thanks.
You live around here?
I'm just walking down the street, man. The Denny's is the other way.
I could hit him.
Need someone to walk you home? Yikes! Careful with that stare, sweetheart. You could hurt somebody.
Oh, let me set him ablaze.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get where I'm going, okay?
Don't apologize to him.
And I'm just trying to be friendly.
I don't need any new friends.
Oh, I see how it is. What, is this not a safe space for me? Do I need to protect my pecker?
You need to protect your legs!
Havoc, no!
Now, dickhead!
Oh my god!
My leg!
Havoc, what the fuck?
What the hell was that? How did you...
Tell anyone who will step on your own feet!
Jesus Christ!
Let's get out of here.
Havoc, we can't just leave him like that.
Sure we can.
God, can you at least give me my body back? I could walk.
Promise you won't go back.
Promise. Thank you. Now what the fuck was that?
Oh, come now. You're telling me you haven't dreamed about doing exactly that to every Tom, Dick, and Dicker that's ever catcalled you.
Sure, but it would only ever lead to something worse.
Not now. Now I am the something worse.
I might not be worried about that guy following me home now, but I'm not looking to catch a felony charge.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you. You don't have to worry about that. That man's legs will never be the same, and there will be no consequence, because no one will ever believe him.
No, come on, he could...
What? Admit he got beat up by a girl? Tell the police you've got enough strength to break a man's thigh bone? He's never going to talk.
And I bet he'll think twice before pulling that kind of shit again.
Oh, he absolutely will.
Fuck. That man will never harass another woman because we made him pay.
And doesn't that feel good? Come on. I can feel you smiling. Just say it.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good.
And darling, we're just getting started. "2000 and Late" is a production of Atypical Artists and executive produced by Patrick Ellis and Lauren Shippen. The show was created, written, and directed by Lauren Shippen, with the brilliant Octavia Bray as our script consultant. Our spectacular sound design is by the fabulous Jeffrey Nils Gardner. Our dazzling original art was created by the first-rate Ellis Carson Jones, and our rollicking theme music is by the ever-wonderful Brandon Rugel. We have many incredible actors lending their voices, so I'll let them speak for themselves, in order of appearance.
Margaret Burris as Maddie.
Elena Victoria Feliz as Gemma.
Vicky Kelleher as Carol.
Candace McAfee as Rory.
Tyler Moody as Sid.
Oh, and of course, Lauren Shippen plays both Harper and Havoc. She really is so self-obsessed. For more information about the show, please visit harperandhavoc.com. Our advertising is arranged by Multitude, so please get in touch with them if you'd like to participate in the glory that is capitalism. All right, that's all for now. Until next time, go out and wreak some havoc.
Earwax Magazine is a new podcast and newsletter. It's also the cool best friend your ears have always wanted. Earwax puts together a curated listening experience just for you, highlighting indie music, weird poetry, found sounds, inventive audio fiction, podcast recommendations, creator interviews, and more. If you're looking for something awesome to listen to, Earwax has you covered. Founded by Greater Boston co-creator Jeff Van Driesen, Earwax is an effort to literally and metaphorically cut through the noise and will feature a rotating menu of sonic delights, 2 newsletters a month, and a different podcast each week. The current lineup includes Earwax Magazine, a monthly breakdown of music, indie audio fiction, cool sounds, and soothing tones from an array of talented writers and contributors, releasing every 4th Wednesday. Infinite Mixtape. Harkening back to the days of tape decks and CD burners, Jeff Van Driesen and a guest compile mixes based on a theme, share it with each other, and then talk about it, releasing every 1st Wednesday. Drama Club. Audio fiction creators talk about making audio art, the pitfalls, pain points, and pro tips that go with it, featuring Tal Minear, Jade Madison Scott, Oliver Morris, Jeff Andreessen, and more, releasing every second Wednesday. Any Major Dudes. Oliver Morris and Jeff Andreessen discuss their love for yacht rock legend Steely Dan, releasing every third Wednesday. In a world increasingly inundated with slop and discord, Earwax is building a community of audio enthusiasts and delivering a feed worth tuning into. Join the club. Check out Earwax Magazine and discover what you've been missing. Subscribe to the Earwax Magazine at the podcatcher of your choice, and subscribe to the newsletter at earwaxmag.com. Also feel free to contact them at mailearwax@gmail.com.
Earth FM is the place to listen to the more than human world. High-quality nature soundscapes from around the globe, from the Amazon jungle to extreme deserts and Mediterranean birdsong, all recorded by the best artists. Now we are running a giveaway of 1-year subscriptions. To enter, please email us to hello@earth.fm with the subject I love nature, and we will select 3 winners. Until then, we invite you to enjoy the songs of our planet at earth.fm or by downloading our app for iOS and Android.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm being joined now by Lauren Shippen. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm super excited to talk to you about this show. I know I played the first episode for the audience, but I've listened through the entire first season, 10 episodes at this point. Yeah, and I'm really excited to talk about it. I think, though, before we kind of dig into the specifics of this show in general, I feel like you have like a really interesting audio drama history. You've been making audio fiction for, I think it's been like 11 years or so. So I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit more about your background, and especially audio drama. I feel like people just kind of tend to stumble into audio fiction. I feel like it's really rare that anyone like is in like high school and they're like, I'm going to make audio fiction for a living. So I'm kind of curious, did you stumble into this from like a different background, like film or theater? And I'm curious, like, what was the first way that you started telling stories through audio fiction?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely fell into it for sure. It's funny sometimes, I'll get asked like, did you dream about sort of doing the job that you have now when you were younger? And it's like, I didn't know that my job existed when I was younger, when I was in high school. But yeah, I mean, I was an actor first and foremost. Like I grew up doing theater. I focused on musical theater in college. And then I'd sort of thought about, I'm from New York, and I thought about moving back to New York and sort of trying the Broadway thing, and ultimately realized like, ooh, 8 shows a week of the same story. Like I love TV. Yeah. Like I kind of want to like dig into a character over like many seasons, many years. And so decided to move to LA and like try my hand at the sort of TV and film thing. And I was a very kind of classic, LA actor experience of working in a restaurant and auditioning and taking acting classes and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I was, as I had been at that point for, 5 or 6 years, spending a lot of time on Tumblr.
Of course.
I've been on that platform for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
And like consistently too. And this would have been 2014. And so Welcome to Night Vale was like kind of the big thing. Like 2014 was like kind of peak Tumblr in many ways, like sort of peak fandom Tumblr.
1000%.
Yeah. And Welcome to Night Vale was a big deal. And I was doing a lot of driving because I lived in LA. And so I was like, I'm going to give this a try. Like I was into podcasts at that point, which like sounds like kind of a silly thing to say now, but back in 2014, like most people did not know what a podcast was. Mm-hmm. But I had worked a little bit in public radio and summer internship in college. And so like I had caught up with a bunch of stuff sort of through a podcast feed. And that's kind of when I first discovered podcasts. And so I was already like familiar with the medium of podcasts. And when I discovered that there was like, oh, you can tell fiction stories. So I listened to Welcome to Night Vale. I thought it was awesome, fell into that fandom. And around that same time, my acting class was like very encouraging of actors making their own work, because this was kind of the beginning of like web series being purchased by TV networks and, you know, films being nominated for an Oscar that were filmed on an iPhone, like stuff like that. And I was in a friend's web series at the time that was like fully funded and like pretty small scale. Like it was like, you know, like 5 actors and then some guest actors all in one location, just like 2 producers, 1 writer. And it still was so much work and cost so much money. And so like, I really wanted to make my own thing, but I was like, I don't think I can do a web series. But this Welcome to Night Vale thing is really cool. And maybe I can come up with something for audio. And the whole purpose was to give myself something to act in, to sort of like, you know, be like a jumping off point for like a more interesting character, for maybe like a voice reel eventually, things like that. And then like when I actually got into making the first season, I was like, wait a second, writing is all of the stuff that I love about acting and none of the stuff I don't like about acting.
Oh,
so
okay.
like I just kind of committed, you know, I obviously still act, right? Like I am the leads, plural, in 2000 and late. But that is more like of a practical thing than anything else, in that I don't cost anything when I'm acting in my own stuff. But yeah, I fell in love with writing, and I fell in love with writing audio fiction specifically. And so I just like continued to make the Bright Sessions, which is that first show that I started, and then kind of rode the wave of audio fiction starting to get really popular. That was such a long-winded answer.
No, that's fantastic. I think everyone's journey into this medium is just so interesting, like I said, because no one really goes in wanting to start it. And I love that you started as like, oh, this is just kind of like, you know, like a demo reel for myself that's cheaper to make than a web series, and then, you know, realize like, hey, this is actually like a viable career.
Yeah, well, and like it wasn't a viable career for the first 3 years that I did it. You know, like we launched the show in the fall of 2015, and it was the fall of 2018 that I was able to like quit my part-time job and actually like do audio fiction full time. And that was after the first main run of the Bright Sessions, because like, yeah, I mean, the Bright Sessions, you know, because when it first started, nobody was getting paid anything. Eventually, you know, between Patreon and ads and stuff, I was able to pay actors and sound designers and that kind of stuff. But like, it certainly was not enough to live on. And then, yeah, like it was really the rest of the industry kind of catching up, and audio fiction being a thing that now studios were investing in, and I was being hired to write and direct and things like that enabled it to be a job for me.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you were at sort of the beginning of, I would call it kind of an audio fiction renaissance, because like, you know, in kind of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, audio fiction was like so popular on the radio, you know, people would listen to it, you know, instead of watching TV, because TV wasn't a thing at that point. And then it just like fizzled out for so long, I feel like, with... especially around, I think Welcome to Night Vale came out in either 2011 or 2012. It feels like we just had this like huge renaissance of audio fiction. So that's really cool that you were kind of in it from like, I guess like the ground floor almost.
Yeah, like I think of sort of audio fiction having a couple of different generations in the modern era, right? And sort of fiction podcasts specifically. And I think of like Welcome to Night Vale, We're Alive, the Leviathan Chronicles. Those were kind of like the grandfathers like of the medium in the modern age. Like they were there in the, you know, late 2000s, early 2010s, and then me, the Black Tapes, Limetown, Archive 81, Wooden Overcoats, Wolf 359 all came out within like 14 months of each other. And so like we're kind of, and like, you know, we were like the sort of the scrappy kids starting out, and then kind of grew up together. And now I think, you know, we're kind of all this like, you know, community that's really supportive of each other, which one of the things I really love about audio fiction is that like all of those people are still like good friends of mine and people that like, you know, I work with and admire. And that's like such a lovely thing to be a part of.
Yeah, audio fiction really has like such a wonderful community around it.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear. So besides audio fiction, I know that you've also written 3 novels tied to the Bright Sessions, and then you've written some short stories as well. Why did you decide specifically to tell 2000 Late as an audio drama versus some sort of other medium like a book? Like, was there something specific about this story that you felt would make a good audio drama? Or again, with your background, was this just kind of like your preferred go-to medium for telling stories?
It really is my preferred go-to. Like, yeah, like I grew up writing, half-finished novels and short stories and haven't really done much like short story writing since I was younger. But the Bright Sessions books like that, the first books I actually finished and like novels that I like fully wrote did come out of making a podcast first. And so like I do think that sort of as an adult writer, despite the fact that I spent my youth and sort of learned how to write in prose and in those sort of shorter, shorter forms and in trying to create like a larger story in novels as an adult writer, like starting with scripts. And I think like the medium of like theater and acting also being kind of the place that I was coming from as an adult artist, like that is always what I think of first. And so I've actually had the experience, like I was developing a show for a little while that ended up becoming a book that is now out on submission because I was like,
oh, cool.
in the process of developing it. And I was like, this wants to be something else. Like, sure, this could work as a podcast, but like, I don't think I can do the story justice in podcast form. Like, I think this needs to be a book. So yeah, that's all to say audio is absolutely my default. And I think with 2000 Late, I do think that the show would like also work as a TV show. I think it's probably the show I've made that most lends itself to the TV medium. Like, I think it would be like a fun kind of like dark sitcom. But for me, I mean, like that, so much of this show is about the relationship between Harper, who's this, 30-something woman, and Havoc, the demon possessing her. And like audio is perfect for that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not the first person to do like a person has some other being in their head in audio drama, right? Like there's Malevolent, there's Give Me Away, there's all of these great shows that have that. Because it is like audio, we talk about it being such an intimate medium, something that you're listening to kind of by yourself and you have this relationship with the voices in your head. And then so to add a layer on top of that of like, there's this voice in the character's head that you're also experiencing, I think is just like perfect for audio. And I also like, one of the things I love about horror in audio, having not written very much of it, and 2000 Late isn't horror, but I think that some of the same things apply. Things are so much more interesting and scarier when you can't see them, right? And so like when Havoc does manifest, like we get later on in the season, we get like a little sense of what some of their like traits might be as their sort of like full demon self. But like it is ultimately up to the imagination, and it is up to the imagination sort of like how Harper is moving through the world with this like passenger. And so that's something that I also really love about audio is the kind of like imagination that it invites from the listener.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because I think I liked that there were points where Havoc kind of made an appearance and you were just like, they could literally look like anything. Yeah. I don't know. They're definitely scary, but I see what you mean also about it having kind of the vibe of a sitcom or a TV show, because I know one of the descriptions for the show, you said it was like Fleabag meets Venom.
Yeah.
I also, personally, for me, it reminded me a lot of Broad City. If one
I
of
love
them had
that. That's such a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, if one of them just happened to happen across a demon. But yeah, I think having it in an audio medium was really interesting, being able to hear all of Harper and Havoc's bickering between each other. I've really enjoyed it. I guess kind of related to that too, you mentioned earlier you are the voice actor for both Havoc and Harper, and I'm kind of curious because I think it's a bit uncommon for someone to be a creator of a show and also a lead, and then a second lead, and you were a director as well. So yeah. I'm kind of curious, what was it like playing two characters, but you were also self-directing? Like that kind of feels like the role of three people put together. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, the sort of like writing, directing, acting thing is something I've been doing since the beginning, obviously. Like that was sort of the purpose of the Bright Sessions, was to act in it. And then I was just sort of the director by default. And I ended up doing that, in lots of other things. And a couple of years ago, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can direct and write. I can write and act. I can direct and act. I prefer not that's the combo that I think is the hardest. Mm-hmm. But like I'm done doing all three because I think one always suffers, right? But as I said earlier, like the true benefit of me acting in things is, I mean, like it is fun. I do love it. Like acting is a craft that I enjoy digging into. But like I am free and I can do pickups anytime. I don't, it's like in terms of scheduling and recording, in terms of like getting retakes and things like that. Like it just, from like a budgetary and sort of like a logistical standpoint, it's very easy to just kind of like slot myself in there. And so for something, I think this is a show where that's like especially advantageous because Harper and Havoc are in so much of it.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is that like I never considered casting anybody else. And I think it's because like in the process of writing this show, it ended up being like deeply, deeply personal and like very cathartic for me to write this story about rage. And then like I think that it just became a thing of like I have to be the vessel for the story because it's like so in the same way that the Bright Sessions was. Like the character playing the Bright Sessions is a direct avatar for me and the panic attacks that I experience, you know, and like there's something like healing in that. And so I think with Harper and Havoc, like there wasn't really another thing that occurred. Like it wasn't just the practical. It was also that like I really wanted to tell the story personally. And then, I mean, in terms of actually making the show, something that I did to kind of make it a little bit easier for myself and hopefully easier for the actors as well is that when we were recording all of the other scenes, you know, I like it was all remote recording. Everybody was, you know, over Zoom or whatever, but we all were recording live as much as possible. So, you know, like so we could play off of each other and all of that. And they would get versions of the scripts without any of Havoc's lines in it. Because
interesting.
They can't hear Havoc. The exception to this being certain scenes where Havoc does make themselves known and, you know, people interact with them. But for the most part, Havoc just exists in Harper's head. And so rather than having to sort of balance switching back between the characters myself while I'm also acting against actors and directing them, I removed all of those lines, and then just like the actors could kind of react to the strangeness of Harper responding to nobody. And then for recording the two characters, I would kind of, especially because there are lots of scenes that are just the two of them, right? So it's like, you know, there's nobody to act against for that. So I would sort of go through and record as Harper, just reading the scene, and then I would, you know, drop that, sort of edit it, pick my takes, and then I would leave space for Havoc, and I would sort of act against the recording of myself as Havoc and do it that way, which I did for big group scenes too. Like in big group scenes, I sort of edited the whole thing together and left space for Havoc's lines, and then just like jumped in and sort of acted against the whole ensemble, sort of in final recorded form. I don't know if that answers your question. I went a bit off.
No,
there.
That definitely does. I think that's super interesting because I was definitely planning on asking you like what your recording process was, and I feel like, on the one hand, being able to hear yourself and kind of like talk to yourself seems like it makes it easier. But now I'm kind of curious because you said you did all of these sessions as much as you could live with all of the actors at the same time. What was that experience like of having to act and direct not only yourself, but then you had, you know, some of these scenes you had like 5 or 6 other people. So what was that experience like? And I guess just kind of switching between director and actor very quickly in, you know, the same takes.
Yeah. I mean, I think something I learned in the process of doing that in other shows is that like the thing that can be allowed to suffer is my performance. Like, I think that like when I'm acting in a scene that I'm also directing, the most important thing is that I'm giving the actors something to play off of, right? That I'm being a good scene partner to them, which is obviously like that's always the goal for acting regardless. But then also that I'm listening to them and that I'm like making notes in my head or in the script of like, you know, things that I'll kind of want to go back to. And so like there's always the sort of understanding that like I might have to like, you know, pick up lines later on to sort of do a better take of something. But the thing I've never done is acted and directed a scene that I didn't also write.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure that I could do that because I think that it's like the thing that's so crucial is the fact that I know these words so well. And I probably have already like, you know, part of my process in editing scripts is like reading the whole thing out loud to myself and playing all of the characters basically just to make sure that it's all flowing and that everything feels good. And so like by the time that I actually get into session with people, I can always lean back on autopilot, which like that's always like a last resort because again, the most important thing is that I'm giving the actors something to play with. But like I sort of have given up the idea that I would be directing myself. Like that always sort of comes like after the fact if there are things that I want to kind of pick up. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, like just recording solo after everyone's. That makes sense, yeah. I think that's kind of interesting because when I was kind of, you know, listening to it, I was like, oh man, trying to do all these different roles seems like it would be incredibly difficult, but the way you're describing it seems like it almost makes it easier in some ways because you know this story front and back. So you're I don't want to say that you're on autopilot, but it just is a lot easier because you know this story so well versus trying to direct something that you didn't write.
Yeah, like I don't really have to do, as an actor, I do occasionally act in things that I don't write and direct. And I love that. That is like such a treat. Like I mentioned Give Me Away earlier. I'm in seasons 2 and 3 of that show. And like that is such a treat to just get to like show up and just act, especially with that team. They're so wonderful. And with that, when I get a script, like I'm gonna go through the scene. I'm gonna kind of I don't like sort of over preparing. Like I never want to sort of think about how I'm going to deliver a line. But the thing I want to do is like I want to understand where my character is coming from, my objective, super objective. I'm a big Stanislavski person. And then also like, making sure I understand everything that the other characters in the scene are like doing and saying and wanting and all of that kind of stuff. And so like all of that sort of preparation work, I obviously just don't have to do for stuff that I've written. And so, I'm able to kind of just like slip into things a little bit more naturally because I kind of always... I already have an idea of kind of like, I never want to direct my actors to like do the exact thing that I'm hearing in my head, but I always have like an idea of how I think things are going to go. And so then it's just a matter of like steering people toward that. Or what happens often, and what I love about working with actors, is that like they'll do something that is so far away from what I was imagining and it's great. And I'm just like, okay, let's go down that path now. And then oftentimes actually like that's where as an actor, I think, my performances get stronger in the live scenes, where it's like when an actor throws something at me that I didn't expect, and then it's like, okay, now I kind of have to be versatile and be agile as well, and give you something that maybe I didn't expect Harper to say in this way. And that's always really exciting. I mean, for this, I actually didn't end up doing that many retakes for Harper's lines. They were mostly actually like technical things because like just I work with really great actors and they're great scene partners. And so it just like makes it very easy to do all of these things.
That makes sense. I'm actually kind of curious because, you talked a bit about your previous experience as an actor for like web series, working on film. You talked about theater as well. What is the difference as an actor between, sort of having these like in-person live recording sessions or, performing live in front of an audience versus recording audio fiction over Zoom? Is there much of a difference to you? Does it feel similar?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that obviously like the pandemic changed immensely. Like all of the Bright sessions up until season 7, which was one that we recorded in the pandemic, was recorded in person with all of the actors in the same room at the same time, like in a physical space. That physical space for the first 4 seasons being my 1-bedroom apartment and then eventually a studio. And that makes all of the difference in the world. Like, I really do miss that. And Phantom Pulse, the show that I'm writing right now that will be coming out sometime next year, we are going to be recording that in person in LA because it's like it's a 5-person ensemble show. Those 5 people need to be together in a room. Mm-hmm. That said, I think like for me, because of the way that our society and culture and socialization has changed since 2020, you actually can get a lot of that same chemistry. I think you can get like 95% of the way there of like, if you've got everybody on Zoom together, you can get to almost the level that it would be if you were in person together at the same time in the same room. And there are, then other pros that come with doing remote recording. One of them being obviously, again, budget. You don't have to book a studio. Everybody kind of has their own setups. But the more interesting thing to me and the more important thing to me is that like, then I live in Seattle now, but I used to live in LA and I'm from New York. And so I work with a lot of New York actors as well. Mm-hmm. And like New York and LA and Chicago to a certain extent are sort of the places where actors go and where they are. But there obviously are so many systemic things that lead to the actors that are there, right? Like who can actually afford to move to LA or New York? Who can actually afford to stay there? Who can afford to sort of last and exist in that ecosystem? And there's so many great actors in smaller towns or smaller cities all around the country that like, if you're just recording in person in LA, you're not going to have the opportunities to work with, and they're not going to have those opportunities. And so that's something that's like really important to me. And like 2008, like our cast is, yes, we absolutely have like several people in LA. We have several people, in Chicago, New York, but like it is a sort of geographically diverse cast. And so that's sort of the trade-off of doing remote. The thing that I don't ever do if I can help it I'll do this for like smaller like roles, like if you just have a couple of lines, is have people just like record by themselves in isolation. Like I really try to avoid that. If I can't get the actors' schedules together, I at least will do a live directed session where I am playing the other role opposite them. And that's something that I've done for the bigger productions that I've directed as well. And one of the things that I really love about getting to work with like actors from TV or film or theater or whatever is that they discover the thing that I love about audio drama acting, which is like, oh, this is just the fun part of acting. It's just the fun part because like there's this old adage in LA of actors don't get paid to act, they get paid to wait and do the acting for free. Because in film, you are mainly sitting around and waiting. On a typical sort of 12, 14-hour day on a film set, you're doing 8 pages maybe, of script. And you've got to do all these different setups for the different camera things. And you've got to do, hair and makeup. And depending on what kind of thing you're doing, that hair and makeup could take 4 hours, right? For like, things that are doing prosthetics, et cetera. And then like, yes, you do get to, act in person with these people on a cool set. And like, there's so much fun in that. But you also have to think about hitting your mark. You have to think about hitting your eye line. You have to think about the props that you're dealing with. And all of those things are true as well for theater, right? You have to think about projection. You have to think about hitting your mark again. You have to think about, 3/4 turned out to the audience so that they can see and hear what you're doing. And with audio, it's just like, you just get to act. You just get to play. And as long as you are not like knocking the mic around or like moving around the mic too much, it is just that human connection. And it's just sort of like getting into that character and getting into that dynamic with the other actor that you're with. And that to me is like the stuff that I love the most. And so like, there are things that I absolutely love about live theater, things you like cannot sort of mimic in any other medium, right? Like having a live audience is like such a specific thing. And I really didn't enjoy like some of the, TV and film stuff that I did. But like to me, audio drama is just like, it's like being in acting class. Like it's just play.
That makes sense. It sounds like less mental load almost. Like you're kind of just really getting to dig in and focus on the acting and not having to focus on like hair and makeup or like, is it too hot in this, the studio or, stuff like that, and kind of just like really dig into the fun bits.
You don't even have to memorize your lines. Like
that's true.
That's like half the battle sometimes with theater or film or whatever, where it's just like, especially if you have a lot of words, sometimes that's the thing that you're focused on more than anything else, is saying the lines correctly. And you don't have to worry about that in audio, which is nice.
That's super interesting. Back to the specifics of 2000 and late, I was wondering with Havoc's sort of accent and vocal tone that you used, because I think Havoc kind of sounds like they're almost like a 1920s radio announcer.
That's exactly what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, which I loved. Was that something that you had in mind when you were writing the script, or was this something that came about either when you were acting or when you were discussing sort of the sound design phase? Because I know there were kind of references to how Havoc sounded in the script. So I was just kind of wondering, like, did you decide on the sound design then revise the script, or how did that process work?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was decided before we got like into recording, but it was a process, and part of my sort of like biggest hesitation and fear around casting myself in these roles was the fact that like I cannot do accents. I can't do voices. Like this is my limitation as a voice actor, is I can just like be myself and that's kind of it. And I knew that I needed to differentiate Harper and Havoc's voices somehow. And like, obviously, like there were effects that we could do on Havoc's voice, but like I didn't want them to sound like demony. And initially, Havoc was kind of going to be like a Boston dirtbag. I packed my cot, have a yard, and walked to Fenway Park, that kind of thing. My dad is from Boston, and like my grandparents both kind of had like Boston accent hangovers, and like there are certain things that I say that are kind of like I say like rum instead of room, like but ultimately like I did spend a lot of time like practicing the accent and sort of like listening to a bunch of native speakers and kind of trying to figure out like what version Havoc was, and like it wasn't totally clicking. And also the thing about doing an accent, no matter what accent you're doing, no matter how good you are at that accent, somebody from that place will be like, that nobody sounds like that where I'm from. And because people don't understand, like the idea of an idiolect, because that's like not a word that we like hear very often. Dialect we're familiar with, right? It's like a local regional dialect we understand, right? Like the Boston accent, New York accent, whatever. An idiolect is your specific individual accent. And like people's idiolects are like mine, right? It's like, I don't know if you ever took that like New York Times accent quiz that they did like 10 years ago or whatever.
No, what was that?
So you like go through and you like click a bunch of things about like idioms or the way that you pronounce things, and then it like places you geographically in the United States.
Oh, yes, I did actually take that. It
was it accurate?
Got me correct. Yeah, I'm from like central Pennsylvania, so when they ask certain pronunciations about like how do you say the word milk or eagle, things like that, it clocked me.
That's amazing. So this came out like my senior year of college. I'm from New York. I went to college in Virginia. And yeah, my dad's from Massachusetts. My mom grew up in Chicago. And I took the quiz and it gave me Southern California. And I was like, this is because I watch so much TV. And that was like my main socialization as a teenager, because I didn't have a lot of friends and I watch a lot of TV. And like, where is TV made? Southern California. And so like, there are all of these things that like, kind of like feed into your specific idiolect. And so it's like, people from a place can actually sound like whatever, because their parent could be from another country, you know, like they could have English could be their second language. You know, there's just so many things that factor into that. But like, you're always going to get the people who are like kind of, you know, think of a thing one way. And I kind of didn't want to deal with that. And man, this is such a long-winded answer to your question, but I do find this stuff interesting, like sort of the accent stuff. And the other thing about sort of Havoc being the Boston dirtbag, I was like, that's the obvious choice. Like that is the thing that like would make most sense for the demon possessing Harper specifically, right? Because she's kind of this like burnout, like nihilistic kind of like, you know, failure, like, and so there was something a little bit too easy about that. And so I was thinking about like, well, what are other like accents that I love or like voices that I love? I'm a huge Katharine Hepburn fan. Like I love old movies. And the transatlantic, mid-Atlantic accent is one that I find completely fascinating. And crucially is an accent that nobody has ever naturally had.
Yeah.
People were taught to speak with it either in their like private schools or like as they were becoming a radio announcer, as they were becoming a movie star, whatever, in the 20s through 40s. And so like nobody could kind of like, it wouldn't alienate anybody because nobody actually has that accent and nobody knows anybody who has that accent naturally, especially now, right? Like it's not really an accent that people have anymore. And sort of once I had that thought, I was like, well, that's kind of interesting because then that gives Havoc also a very different way of like literally speaking. Like they have like different sentence structure, different vocabulary. Like they're not just this like direct mirror of Harper that they would have been if I had done sort of like a different American modern accent. They kind of, they become their own being in a way that like ended up being really crucial. And so like that was sort of all happening as I was drafting the scripts. And then I was about halfway through drafting the season and I was like, okay, I'm going back and I'm rewriting all of Havoc and they're going to speak completely differently. And that's, you know, that's kind of where it ended up.
Yeah, I think that's, I almost wish that I could pivot this interview and just talk to you about accents for the rest of the time, but that's so interesting because I remember, I'm not sure what episode it was, but there was one point where Havoc said the reason they talked like that was because that's how people were talking the last time they were upstairs, and quotes, and that just made me laugh so much. That was like such an interesting way to like fit this differentiation into the story. And I feel like as a listener, having them have two wildly different accents really helped so much to not get confused between the two of them because like, you know, I know that you were playing both of them, but they sounded different enough that, you know, it was very easy to tell who was speaking when.
That's such a relief to hear.
yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I kind of want to pivot away from like the technicalities of acting to more of like why you decided to write this story and when, because I know you said that it's very personal and at like listening to this being, I'm technically a zillennial, but like I was like, this feels very, I don't know, just like the millennial experience kind of personified. So I'm kind of curious, you know, there were so many references to like these modern issues people face throughout the series. Dangers of capitalism and mega corporations, exploitation of workers, misogyny, especially in that first episode, issues with health insurance and healthcare, chronic pain, just so many things. And I'm kind of curious, how did current events impact you as you were creating and writing this story? And then also, was there a particular event or events that like this happened, you were like, I gotta take these feelings and like put them into this story, because it just felt, especially after COVID and, you know, we both live in the United States, it felt very topical. So I'm kind of curious how current events affected you making the story.
Yeah, I mean, it was a confluence of a bunch of things. And this is far and away the most political and most sort of directly referential show I've ever written. Like, The Bright Sessions takes place like in our, all of my shows take place like in our world, but like a little bit different, right? There's like there's superpowers or there's a demon, you know? But oftentimes, like, though a lot of my other shows sort of exist in a world that like, where like certain people weren't like elected in 2016 and where like certain pandemics didn't happen, right? Because like for the most part, like the thing that I'm interested in fiction is character dynamics and relationships and like the, you know, like large like ethical questions that sort of like stand outside of a particular place and time and sort of are just like larger like moral quandaries. And yeah, and I sort of like playing in sort of my own little made up sandbox of whatever conditions I prefer. And this was the first time where I was like, this is exactly our time right now. Just there are demons. Like that is the only difference. Everything else is exactly the same. And for legal reasons, this company is called Mammoth, but Mammoth is a synonym for something, you know? If you look up synonyms for Mammoth, something might pop up. And yeah, but bizarrely, this is actually a show that I first came up with like in late 2019, early 2020. I just sort of had the idea of like, you know, as a teenager, I loved the like chosen one narratives, right? Like the 16-year-old girl who like, because that's the dream when you're like a teen who doesn't have a lot of friends, right? Is that like you're going to be chosen to save the world. And now is sort of a, you know, slightly, although I'm back when I came up with this idea, I wasn't really that disaffected. But as somebody, you know, who was like entering her 30s, I sort of had the thought of like, what would it be like if sort of that same thing happened, but it's a person in their 30s? And it wasn't even necessarily like a demon at first. It sort of became that after a couple months of like thinking about this. And then that idea just like sat on the shelf for years. And it was really in talking to Patrick Ellis, my executive producer, who, you know, was really interested in making audio fiction, really wanted to make something like female-led. And he asked me for some like pitches of, you know, he's like, what ideas do you like have sitting on your shelf that you would be interested in making? And I went back and I sort of thought about some things. And he was like, this one really interests me. And I was like, that also interests me too, because this was late 2024. And sort of dusting that idea off, I was all of a sudden like, I was at the stage where literally nobody in the story in sort of mid 2024 had a name except for Gemma, Harper's girlfriend. She was like the only person who had a name. And that was as detailed as the idea was, basically. It was like, gotcha. 30-something woman gets possessed by a demon who's there to bring about the apocalypse. Her girlfriend's name is Gemma. That's the whole thing. And in talking to Patrick and sort of thinking about and like dusting that idea off, all of a sudden the entire show manifested, because it was like, it was just became so clear what it was about. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like when I like actually like wrote the first sort of bit of the pilot a couple of years ago, kind of like I sort of knew like the narration thing of sort of like Harper telling somebody the story and you don't know what it is and it turns out it's a job interview. Like that I had sort of written a couple of years ago. But the sort of main thrust of the storyline of sort of her trying to unionize her workplace, the social issues that we're dealing with, the aftermath of COVID, the chronic pain stuff, all of that just like, yeah, really coalesced after sort of like a couple of years of just like losing my mind in bits and pieces, right? Like there were a bunch of things that like happened in sort of a 5-year period, many of which everybody experienced. Yeah. You know? And like I've been working with the WGA for years to try and unionize audio for writers and, you know, and have also had my ups and downs with SAG. So and also like have gone through the thing of like hiring people and having employees and, you know, putting people on healthcare plans and all this kind of stuff and sort of being like radicalized through so much of that to be like, oh my God, like there are all of these people who are like, have these companies and who are like not even thinking about this stuff as much as I am, and they have all of the money in the world, and I'm just like trying to string together 2 pennies to like give somebody healthcare during a pandemic, right? And so there was all of that, and then like The chronic pain thing actually was something that I had not planned at all in writing the show. And it's just something that came out because 10 years ago, I got scarlet fever and had a sort of chronic pain issue after it for a long time that I still struggle with sometimes. And so like that was one of those things where it was just sort of like, oh, I guess I have feelings about this that need to come out. But yeah, there are a lot of things that are lifted like directly from reality, like the so the union busting video that you hear in episode 3 is just a pure transcript of an Amazon training video. I did not write a single line. That's all real. And the catcalling incident that happens in the first episode is also a direct transcript of street harassment that I experienced the day after the 2024 election.
Wow.
It was
what a combination.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I, went to sleep the night before feeling like absolute shit. Woke up, went to my part-time job, which involves, being out and around people, and was just trying to deliver something. And this guy on the street, that was exactly the interaction. I didn't break his legs, unfortunately. But it was just one of those things where it was like, I just was so incandescently filled with rage, and that I think I went home and the next day basically finished writing the pilot because I was like, oh, okay, this is what has to happen now. So yeah, it really was just thing after thing after thing that was, even though it's not really a thing that's talked about very much in the show, the reversal of Roe was something that was really kind of on my mind emotionally. Right. And ultimately, this is about a woman who's being sort of, who's got this passenger inside of her that maybe she has complicated feelings about. And yeah, so I feel like I've just poured a bunch of personal grievances on you.
No, please.
But that's, yeah, it really was coming from, I think everything I'm saying, everybody can relate to in one way or another, right? We all have experienced shades of this over the last 5-6 years. And just kind of, I was surprised at how much I was able to pack into one show. And that was sort of the realization of oh, right, every day is just this for every person in America, basically.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting. The idea for this story came before COVID because it just, to me, I feel like it really encapsulates when COVID happened, there was just so much happening all the time. And we were kind of just expected to carry on.
Yeah.
And never, I was thinking about that the other day, wow, that happened. And we never really got to process it. So yeah. I feel as a listener listening to this show felt very cathartic because it was getting to see a character go through these similar situations and actually do something about it. Obviously, I can't do the same because I don't have a demon hanging out with me. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It kind of seems like you had this spark of an idea before, and then 2022, 2024-ish when it, you would have been working on it, just was rocket fuel poured on it almost.
Completely. It really was it's funny, you have these ideas, you sort of write them down, and then at the right moment, they sort of manifest themselves more fully. And it really was kind of the stacking of I would say COVID, Roe, 2024 election was sort of I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly what you just said of we societally, culturally, psychologically have just not even begun to grapple with what COVID did to us, and what it still is doing to us, right? It's not, people are still getting sick from it. And yeah, just I remember sort of thinking in writing the first couple episodes of we're just dropping people into 3 weeks into this possession, right? We're not doing the Spider-Man origin story for the 700th time, right? And are people going to believe that Harper would just sort of shrug and be well, this might as well happen? And then I realized yeah, of course, because we've all been doing that every day for 6 years.
Yeah, it's I feel her getting possessed by a demon was not the most bizarre or upsetting situation in this story.
Yeah.
So her just being yeah, I guess there's a she freaked out a little bit when Havoc first showed up, but was just well, I guess there's further on, Gemma kept asking her, you tried to get an exorcism, right? What happened? And Harper was oh, I just, I was going to get around to it, I guess. It made me laugh so hard because just her, experiencing all of these other more urgent things than being possessed. Just,
yeah.
Oh man, it was so funny. And I'm kind of curious too, because I feel even though Harper, I mean, people have only listened to the first episode at this point on this show, but, there are 10 episodes of her just kind of going through these incredible situations, and just, it feels like things kept getting worse and worse and worse. But as I was listening to it, there was just constantly this undercurrent of hope, even though things were kind of a disaster in multiple ways for Harper. And you mentioned, this was a description of the show in your press kit. You said, "Our story is dark, angry, and full of hard-won optimism. It's about relearning the hope and affection you feel for the world, and also about the world being destroyed. It will never wallow in the darkness of humanity, but it also isn't blind to humanity's flaws. This is a story about imperfect, destructive people who want to shape the world into something better." Why do you feel it's important right now to create these stories with, like, such an intense underlying theme of hope? Because, like I said, Harper goes through it. I mean, she pretty much anything that can go wrong does, except for her, dying, but pretty much everything else goes wrong. So, yeah, I don't know. Why do you feel it was so important to kind of tell this story of hope right now?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, hope is necessary for survival, right? Like, I think that there's like a very careful balance of not letting hope be something that's like where you're like burying your head in the sand, or you're being like naive about like the way that the world is. But I also think that like we are constantly invited to despair in our current world, right? Like there are so many terrible things happening every single second of every single day. And we are more aware of that than we ever have been as like the human race, right? Like we have access to like every awful thing that is happening. And then you put on top of that, this is like, I will not go on like a whole thing, but like one of my sort of like deep dive special interests of the last decade or so has been like right-wing extremism and online anger and the way that social media platforms have been shaped. And I've got a lot of book recommendations if people are interested. And that is the other piece of this too, is that social media sites, which then eventually sort of taught news sites to do this and everything else, discovered very quickly that the thing to get people's attention was to invite them into anger and despair. And so there is a capitalist incentive to make you angry and hopeless. And so to me, hope is like the central tool to use against like fascism and capitalism, right? Because like the moment that we start to despair and leave hope behind, there is no recourse for us to win. And part of what the show is grappling with is like, what does it actually look like, right? Like what does hope look like when it's not being naive or being blind to the issues? You know, what is sort of realistic moves forward and victory look like? And to be clear, the show has no answers. It is not attempting to answer any of those things. It's more about having the messy discussion of like, boy, it sure would feel good to just destroy everything, right? Would that work though? But also going about things the right way isn't working because everybody stopped playing by the rules. So like, what do we do? And I don't have the answer for that. But like, I just know that like the moment that we lose hope, to me, I think also one of the things that like I always try to communicate in all of my art, and kind of the reason that I make art in the first place, is to make people feel less alone. And I think that like true loneliness involves the absence of hope as well. And so I think that it's like tied into that as well, of like, I am reaching out my hand and saying, everything sucks, but I'm going to be hopeful if it kills me. Would you like to join me? And like, hopefully people will reach a hand back and kind of come with you on that journey.
I love that so much. Yeah, I definitely felt like kind of guided in that direction as I was listening, because there was such an undercurrent of hope. And I think it was interesting too that a lot of the hope in this series came from Havoc, because I feel like Harper just like didn't really care at all about life in general. Like she was just kind of going through the motions. You mentioned a little bit about the messiness of hope, but something that felt hopeful to me about this series was sort of the like queer inclusion. We had, Harper and Gemma's relationship, Havoc being non-binary question mark. They just said they didn't really care about pronouns.
Use whatever pronouns you want.
Yeah.
Including it. Like, it is one of their pronouns for sure.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious, because you've spoken before online through like different discussions and things like that about being a queer creator yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious, like, you've talked about how personal this show has been to you in other ways, but I'm curious, like, how has your sexuality influenced the creation of this story? And I also kind of want to hear, as the second part to my question, I feel like audio fiction in general is just a very queer space. And I'm kind of curious, I have my own thoughts about why that might be the case, but I'm kind of curious to hear from you why you think this is such a queer-friendly medium compared to, like, film, and I would say television especially.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start there, and I am curious to hear if your thoughts align on this with mine. But I think there's sort of like two things at play. I think one of them being the, you know, sort of famously touted low barrier to entry. And like, obviously, like, even saying that is complicated, right? Because like there are still, again, like a lot of systemic things that give people an advantage when it comes to like making something as a hobby or on their own or whatever. But in terms of like making something and getting it out there, like self-publishing a book and like making an audio drama are about like the clearest, cheapest, easiest, most accessible things that you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that doing either of those things is easy, but like compared to like making a TV show or a movie or a stage production. And so I think that like because of that, a lot of otherwise like unheard voices or like marginalized communities are able to wedge our way in, you know, like like there was no like even like just as like a woman audio fiction creator, like in the beginning, like sort of looking around at the other audio fiction creators back in like 2015, I was like, okay, like where are the ladies at? Like, you know, but the thing that was crucial is that like I entered that space. There weren't a lot of other female creators, but like I was still welcomed completely as an equal and completely as like a person who belonged there. And that's kind of the other half of this, which is that like I very much do want to give Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner, the creators of Welcome to Night Vale, their flowers for this, because I mean, first of all, huge fans of their work, and also just like they're wonderful people that I care about deeply. But like making the lead character of Welcome to Night Vale a queer man played by a queer man and making that like not a big deal at all in a time when like everything on television was like, you know, like almost walking up to that line or like toying with that line, but like never kind of, you know, like actually crossing it. And then you have like Cecil being like, oh my God, this guy Carlos just has like beautiful hair and I'm in love with him, right?
Beautiful scientist.
And I think that just like, because of what Welcome to Night Vale's success, because it got so big and sort of became like the thing that people thought of when they thought of fiction podcasts, and it had this queer relationship at its center, those two things I think kind of became synonymous. And it also was a huge like waving flag to people like me and other people to be like, oh, we're allowed to do this. Like this isn't going to be a turnoff for audiences. Like I don't have to sort of be careful about this. Like I can like say the word bisexual in a podcast, nobody's gonna freak out, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, like when I first started audio fiction and I hadn't come out as bi to like most people in my life and was kind of like still figuring out, you know, how I wanted to move through the world and the community in that way. And so like sort of just having this very safe space, for like lack of a better term, was like really wonderful. I don't know if that like tracks with the way that you think about audio fiction and queerness.
Yeah, I think so, because I think for me as a queer creator myself, I found both of those to be very relevant, because it was like my show is like a horror show that really deals with like issues around like PTSD. And I think I knew that I wanted the main character to be bisexual. And I realized like, okay, if I'm going to make this as, let's say I pitch it to a studio, I'm going to have to not only justify this show should receive funding, I also need to justify the fact that my main character is a bisexual Black woman. And I was like, why should I have to go and basically beg for money from a studio when I can just do this myself?
Right.
And obviously it's not easy making a show yourself, and you have to, you know, gain funds, and you have to do, you know, kind of like you were talking about earlier, all of these different roles, you know, from writer, creator, producer, whatever. But I think there's something empowering of just being able to grab the reins and be like, I have an idea. I'm just going to make the idea. And I think so many queer creators have kind of been shunned out of traditional media that you really see. I think there's been a bit of an increase when it comes to queer literature specifically. I've found a lot more, especially books that star trans characters recently, compared to, I guess, like TV and film. But even then, I feel like audio drama to me feels like it has a lower barrier of entry even than writing a book, but that might be because I'm trained in audio. So I think, just being able to grab the reins and be like, I'm going to make this thing. It's going to be loud and proud. And if people don't like it, fine, but I've made this cool thing myself.
Yeah. And like, I think that is honestly like sort of the my answer to the second part of the question of like, why was it important to me to sort of make Harper a queer woman and have these relationships at the center. And like, back in the day, I remember, thankfully I haven't received any of these messages about 2008, but back in the day I would occasionally receive messages from people about the Bright Sessions being like, the show's great, but like, it's so unrealistic that there's so many queer people. Yeah. And I'd have to be like, I don't know how to tell you that like, there are fewer queer characters in this show than there are queer people making this show. Like, this is like almost like directly reflected like by the people. Like, this is my community, right? And it's the same thing with 2008, right? Where it's like, I was talking to my partner the other day and I was like, wait, okay, no, I do have 2 straight female friends. Okay. like I have diversity. Cause like, my community, and I'm sure it's the same way for you, is just like full of like queer people and trans people and gender fluid people and, people figuring their shit out still and all that kind of stuff. And so like, I think for me, it was just like reflecting that. And I think specifically with Harper, I think the thing that was important for me with her is that we eventually sort of find out that she had this very close relationship with her uncle who passed away during COVID and is still like quite close to his husband, but like has sort of distance for stuff, sort of, again, rejected community. And like in my life, my uncle and his husband were like basically like second parents to me. Like they were like huge, they're both in the arts and they were like hugely influential to me growing up and like such a huge part of my community and of like the, my queer community. And so like that I think was something that like I kind of wanted to reflect as well. It was like a little bit of the generational thing and just the fact that like, this has always existed and will always exist. And like, it can be in your family, it can be in your workplace, it can be with your friends and like just sort of trying to not necessarily even like pointing at or making a big deal of any of those things, but just like, just like literally reflecting the people that I've had in my life, my whole life.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And I don't know, like you can definitely tell that there's like a lot of like queer love in this show. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
And like a very queer cast too. Like a lot of our cast is, like when I do casting calls, I'm just like, this role has these pronouns. And if you submit, you're saying you're cool with like playing somebody with those pronouns, but like that doesn't mean that people's pronouns match the character they're playing, right? Like, it is, a lot of like gender fluidity and all kinds of queerness, in the cast itself too.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. So you did the casting for this show? Can you kind of talk a little bit about that as well of like getting to like make space for queer actors?
Yeah, I mean, like I think this is like a little bit of like a chicken and egg thing, right? Because it's like because the audio fiction space is so welcoming to queer people, posting a casting call kind of like in audio fiction spaces, you're just going to get a lot of submissions from queer people, which is great. So it's like already I'm pulling from a pool that is like more diverse than a TV pool might be. And like the thing that I'm always focused on first and foremost, sort of like there's, sort of tiers of importance when it comes to like casting a role, right? Like the first one being like, is this person right for the role? Do they take direction well? Do they seem chill to work with? Like that is almost more important than anything else. It's like, does this person seem cool to work with? And do they show up on time and answer emails at like a reasonable pace? And then like the next thing below that, because like eventually, when you get into sort of callbacks, you're like, well, I have 3 people that would all just absolutely kill this role. Like they would all be great. They all seem great. And then it becomes about vocal diversity. So it's like making sure that the voice they have sounds different from like somebody who's already cast, right? And so like making sure I wasn't casting anybody that sounded like me, right? Because it's like you were going to be hearing my voice a lot. I had to make sure that nobody had a voice that was similar to me. And then it's like, and then you sort of like cast one other character and you're like, okay, now, and it's like weird little like, Tetris thing where it's like you sort of get a piece and it then sort of eliminates someone else because those voices are too similar, et cetera. And so like there's lots of factors that kind of feed into it, but like I am always conscious too of like wanting to make sure that the people I'm considering and the people I'm auditioning, and if I'm, looking at a casting pool and it's like mostly cis white people, then it's like okay, I've got to like figure out where to get my casting call like somewhere else just so that I can like literally see more people. But ultimately like it's always just about like casting like the best person for the role, right? And so then it just becomes about getting as many submissions as possible so that you can like ensure that the pool that you're pulling from is like representative of like the world that we live in.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Next, I kind of wanted to ask you about the feed for 2000 Late. I think you did something kind of interesting here where if folks decide to go and listen to the rest of the show, they'll notice that after episode 2, you started doing every other episode was more of a talk episode instead, or I guess like an interview. You were kind of doing these episodes based on like various things to be hopeful about. So there's one about like, let's be hopeful about fandom, one about sexuality, one about audio dramas. Because I think that's a little unusual to kind of have like effectively kind of like an interview show mixed on the feed with an audio fiction show. Why did you decide to sort of mix what are kind of like two separate shows together? And why did you feel like it was important to do that for 2000 Late specifically?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of reasons. One of them is just sort of being like practical, which is that, like the more episodes you can have, the more you can engage your audience, the better, right? So like finding ways to do bonus episodes for audio fiction is always hard because like a bonus episode for a chat show, it's like, okay, it's like you just do the Patreon feed is just the two hosts talking about movies. And like normally they talk about something more serious or whatever. And it's like with audio fiction, a bonus episode that's in line with the show is just going to be making another episode of fiction, right? It's like, so you kind of run into all the same like practical and budgetary problems. And so like part of it was that I wanted to kind of experiment with like doing a bonus series that was like just like literally easier to do, something that I could edit, that I didn't need a sound designer for. And the other piece of it, sort of for this show specifically, was the fact that like in making the show, I was like, okay, there is this underlying thread of hope in it, but like it's very messy. It does go to some dark places, like, and there is also just like the sort of central fact that it is directly grappling with like real world issues, and that is just like sometimes kind of a bummer to listen to, even if the show itself is like supposed to be fun, Yeah. And so just like wanting to like give people like a little bit of like a palate cleanser, right? Like a little bit of a thing of like, okay, like this is not going to be sort of like high octane, fast cuts, loud metal music. Like it's just going to be like, I mean, there's a little loud metal music at the beginning of each because we got our theme in there. But like, yeah, and I also think like from just like a personal standpoint, it was also that I like wanted to talk to people who were doing the things in the real world that like Harper was trying and failing to do. Right. So like talking to someone about, like how do we destigmatize like sex and sexuality, like talking to somebody about like how do they activate fandom to actually like do real in-world activism. Talking to my friend Matt Kleinman, who's the person who got me into the unionizing thing, and and to start just like about like how hard it is to unionize something, but how we were still like kind of gonna keep trying. So I think just like wanting to leave people with some degree of like, it's not all demons and hellfire all the time. Like here are the good people out in the world who are like trying their best to do good things. And like, you also can be one of those people, like that these are not like people running for Senate, right? Like these are people who have like jobs that allow them to help the world, or are doing it as a hobby, or doing it as part of just like their activism or volunteer work or whatever. And just like trying to give that little bit of like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and I kind of like that they were tied to a lot of the themes in the show, because I remember after, there's lots of talk about like unionization and like workers' rights and things like that. And I remember being like, I wonder what that would be like in this particular industry. And then there's just very conveniently episodes talking about like, let's talk about like workers' rights. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, that it was like, as a listener, you were kind of left with these like, I wonder what this scenario would be like in real life. And then there was just like a very helpful discussion like immediately after.
Yeah, like when Harper sort of opens up about her chronic pain and like we know that she's somebody who like tried to be an artist. Like I talked to somebody who founded the Inevitable Foundation, which is about getting disabled writers more opportunities and guidance and mentorship and things like that. So it's like, yeah, it's like there are these resources out there for you if you're a disabled writer, listening to this episode and really connecting with what Harper is going through, then like here's the place that's going to help you thrive.
Yeah, I thought that they were super interesting, and I definitely recommend for people that decide that they want to listen to the rest of the show, listening to those talk episodes. I felt was really interesting, kind of bouncing back and forth, because it just like kind of really put things in perspective as to like why you were writing this show and like, kind of the underlying themes. I just thought that was a really interesting like technique, I guess, to kind of, talk about the themes of the show.
Thank you.
And then we're getting a little bit close to time here, so I kind of wanted to ask, this might be a little bit nosy for me, honestly, but I know you talked about season 1 is completely out now, and you've talked about an estimated air date for season 2, either late 2026 or early 2027. Is there anything you might be able to tell us about kind of how production's going so far, or anything that we might be able to look forward to in the next season?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the stage right now where I'm trying to figure out how to like pay my wonderful actors and sound designer, right? I have outlined pretty much the whole season, but also like the thing about making a show that is grappling with like our current moment is that there are things that have come up in like the last couple of months where I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to talk about that actually. And so like there's a little bit of like a moving target of like just the things that like that feel urgent to me. So I can't say too much about where we're going in season 2 sort of thematically or plot wise. However, I can say that I'm almost done writing an episode that will be coming out this summer that is going to be a crossover with another show that I think it'll just be sort of like a little side quest, and I think it's been a blast to write, and I'm really looking forward to recording it. Yeah, and it's going to give us a little bit of a glimpse into like what happened immediately in the aftermath of the finale, pertains to perhaps one of Havoc's friends that showed up, and it might not be totally what you expect. So expect that this summer. There will be sort of new Harper Havoc content coming this summer that will be canon, and that will sort of lead us into season 2 eventually.
Oh, fantastic! I'll definitely have to keep my eyes peeled for when that comes out.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you that I kind of want to ask, every creator that comes on this show, but audio fiction is definitely a labor of love, and I kind of want to take a moment to reflect. As you were creating this show, what is the thing that you were most proud of as you created 2000 and Late?
Ooh, I think something that has become difficult for me at times since sort of starting out. It's like one of the great things about getting to make the Bright Sessions sort of as like a young, young 20-something who had, no experience and didn't know if anybody was like listening to this thing, is that I sort of like almost made that show in a vacuum, right? Like eventually people started to listen, but like I was just sort of like following my instincts and just sort of doing whatever, and people happened to like it, and that was great. But like once people are sort of like looking at your work, it can kind of become like a little bit scary. It's like it becomes a thing of like, well, what are people going to think about this? Because like they liked this thing and they didn't like that thing that one time, and like I am a big believer in that. Like you cannot write toward what you think the audience will want. Like that is a trap that will like bite off your hand every time. But there is always still that little voice in the back of your head that's like, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure? And I think like, I don't feel like I pulled any punches in this show. Like, I feel like I said what I wanted to say in this first season, and like with all of like the messy imperfections that come with that. And so like, that felt very good to just sort of be like, you know what? Like my own rage and sort of destructive tendencies are something that I don't particularly like about myself, but like, I'm just going to put it all out there. And so that I think was something that felt very good to do, and something that I'm proud of, because I think that the art is better for it, for sort of not being squeamish about sort of like just, saying things that I believe in terms of like, things being messy and all of that. I don't know if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. Just, having a sense of authenticity, even though you knew people would be going in having heard your work before, versus Bright Sessions where you were just kind of like, here's my thing I made.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope that everyone listening enjoyed as well. Can you let everyone know either where people can listen to more of 2000 and Late, or if they're interested in following you or your other shows, where they can find you online?
Yeah, 2000 and Late, you can find it on any podcast app. You can also go to harperandhavoc.com and find information about the cast and crew and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, in terms of following my work, Lauren Shippen on Instagram, Tumblr, and then also Atypical Artists, my studio, is on Patreon. And that's kind of like the best. You can sign up for free. And that's like the best way to kind of keep up with like what we're doing on a regular basis.
And for people that are listening, you can find links to all of these different places in the description of either your podcast platform or on YouTube. So feel free to check that out if you'd like to see or hear more from Lauren. Lauren, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. It was so great to talk to you, and you as well.
Thank you once again to Lauren for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope all of you listening enjoyed it too. If you want to hear more from Lauren about 2000 and Late, we have an extended version of this interview available now on our Patreon, where we discuss not just the first episode, but the entire first season. To stay up to date on news for the upcoming second season of 2000 and Late, you can visit their official show website and the Atypical Artist Patreon. Atypical Artist also has a trove of free resources available for podcast creators and people hoping to learn more about podcast production. Links are available for all of these websites and resources in the show notes below. Audio Fiction FM is produced by Hemlock Creek Productions. It is created, edited, and hosted by me, Marisa Ewing-Moody. Our music is composed by Adam Kowalczyk, our graphic designer is Krista Neubert, and our motion designer is Calvin McMurray. To learn more about Audio Fiction FM, join our Patreon, or submit a show to be featured, news, or ads, visit us at audiofictionfm.carrd.co. Thank you again for joining us in our premiere episode. We'll be back with more audio fiction goodness on September 9th at 8 p.m. Central Time. See you then.